Gotta use some of this first. Oh, I've got a cut. Hey everyone, how's it going? Aaron Tremblay here, and welcome to my living room because everybody's, at home because of things. I got this idea from Trevor Daly in the MagMod community, and what he did was put out a challenge for this week, and he's actually done one each week. This is the first one I've been able to do. His challenge was still life photography, and the example that he did was he recreated a famous oil painting by a famous painter named Caravaggio. You can go Google Caravaggio, you'll find some really crazy stuff though, but his still lifes are really, really cool. Some of his other stuff is kind of gruesome, and move past those and look at the really good ones that are, of still life and portraits and stuff like that. Caravaggio is really, really good at doing light to dark, and it's a C word, chiaroscuro, I think. I could be saying that way wrong. It essentially means light to dark, and Caravaggio is really, really good at using really bright and really dark stuff in his images. It's really contrasty. The painting that I'm gonna try and recreate in photo form is this one right here. The only thing is I don't have any pears. Like in this shot, I only have apples, but that's fine, it should work the same. And I'm going to use this little table right over here. My wall is kind of textured here, so I'm just gonna move the table away from the wall. And I'm also gonna make sure to control the light spill. If you notice in this photo, the shadows are really, really at a 90-degree angle. So the light source is definitely a really strong to 90 degrees of the side of those pears, and that's why you see those long shadows casting down. That also means that I'll probably wanna move the light source a little bit further away to actually get those hard shadows. Because as we all know, softness of light is the apparent size of the light to the size of your subject. So if I have something like this mag box here, it's 24 inches. If I have it really, really close with, maybe 6 to 12 inches from those apples, it's gonna look massive. The light source is gonna be massive compared to that tiny little apple. So I'm just gonna move it back. By having it further back, it's going to appear as a smaller light source. A really good example of that, if you wanna think about it, is if you go outside in the middle of the day, the sun is super far away. I don't know the exact number, and it's massive. It's super, super huge. It's way bigger than us, and it's way bigger than the Earth. But because it's so far away, it seems like this really tiny point of light. And because it's such a tiny point of light so far away, you see a really hard shadow of yourself on the ground, really sharp edges. It's a very distinct shadow. And that's because even though that light source is gigantic, it's so far away that it appears small. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the equipment I'm gonna use today. I'm gonna be using my 5D Mark IV, and I decided to go with the Sigma 50mm art lens. From looking at the photo, the field of view to me seemed pretty close to a 50mm, so that's what I'm gonna go with. I'm also going to be using the 24-inch mag box. I have the focus diffuser on here, and the reason I'm using the focus diffuser is this is also gonna control the spill of my light for me, and that way I won't have a bunch of light on my background, because if you look at the photo, the background is pretty dark, so there's not a lot of light on the background. So I'm gonna use that focus diffuser to help me kind of control the spill of that light a little bit. I'm also going with 2 flashes in here. I don't think I'm gonna need that much power because I'm inside. And the flashes that I'm using are the Flashpoint V850. So what I'm gonna do real quick is just move some of this furniture. I'm gonna get this chair out of the way, take a few shots, and we'll talk about it. By the way, I still, even though this is a little bit of an older camera, still think it has a really nice shutter sound. Sounds pretty good. I think so. All right, so I pretty much have everything set up and how I want it. So I'm gonna try and dial in my ambient exposure, and then I'm just gonna dial up my lights until I get to the right level that I'm looking for. I'm also going with a pretty closed aperture. I'm gonna start at f8, because if you look at the photo, it's pretty much all in focus. There's not really like a narrow field of view on this one. So I'm gonna start pretty closed down on the aperture and play around with it from there. So one thing I'm noticing after doing the first few test shots is I think I was right on the 50mm, it's pretty close. I've also noticed that I need this light source much further away, and I may even wind up taking off this diffuser and just using the box without any diffuser on it, because it actually is pretty soft still even this far away. The reason I would leave the box on is it's gonna act like a flag for me. I'm still getting a lot of spill on the background, so it's gonna act like a perfect flag and then also give me that real hard light I'm looking for. So I'm gonna give that a shot. All right, so I'm super close, and honestly, I could probably take this photo I just took into post and make it look about exactly the same, but I want to get as close in camera as I can. So because I'm having to have my shutter speed at about 1/100th and I'm at f8, I'm pretty much killing all of my ambient light, which is good, but what I'm running into is that white back wall there is still really bright in the image and it needs to be darker to look closer to the shot, which again, I could fix in post, but I'd rather not. So what I'm gonna try to do is bring the ambient exposure down even more, but I'm getting a lot of really harsh shadows now on the opposite side of the apples. And if you look at the painting, there's still some detail there. It's not total shadow. So I'm gonna bring in a little reflector source on the other side of the apples. And
a few minutes later,
I've definitely done this before. I've actually used mag bounces because they're bright white and designed for bouncing light. I just sat them down for a ring shot before to reflect just enough light because a flash would have been too much. I just needed a tiny bit of bounce. So I'm gonna give it a shot and see if this works. All right, so here is the final photo. Throw it full screen. I couldn't be happier with how this photo turned out. Took me a little bit of tinkering, and if you notice in the time-lapse sped up video that I did, the most amount of time I spent on this was the composition, getting the apples just right, the right distance between them, getting the board placed just right. I think I got about as close as I could on that. And also the shadow, dealing with the shadows and the ambient light was kind of one of the harder things. With a digital camera, obviously we are limited to how much dynamic range it has. And Canons don't have the greatest dynamic range of any camera out there. But what you do to compensate for that is you learn how to use lighting properly. So I did what I've heard referred to before as guerrilla lighting, where I took those two mag bounces, set them on the side to reflect some light back because I needed just a little bit of fill light in those shadows. My ambient light was too dark. I was getting really, really dark black, losing detail almost on one side. So I wanted to bring a little bit of light back in. I didn't want to put another light there because it would have been too much. I just wanted to reflect a little bit of the light back from my box. So the settings I used real quickly were 1/200th of a second. That's the highest sync speed of the flashes. I could have done high speed sync, but I really didn't think I needed it in this case. I went with f8, like I said before, to kind of try and get pretty much everything in focus, except maybe the background and the very foreground. I wanted those three apples to be in focus, like in the painting. And then I went with ISO 1600 because I closed that aperture down so much. My ambient light really, really went away. So I needed to bring that ISO up just a little bit. And honestly, ISO 1600 on a camera like the 5D Mark IV is totally fine. Most modern day full frame sensors have really, really low noise, so I'm not worried about it. Even if there is some grain, that's okay because in a painting, it's not perfectly clear and sharp. It's an oil painting. There's imperfections all over from the brushes and all that, so it's gonna look a little closer to reality. And then I did end up using both of the flashes. I didn't need both of them, but they're already in there. They were both set at 1/128th, which is the lowest power they'll go to. I did end up taking that focus diffuser off because I wanted that really, really tight beam of light and as much specularity and kind of harsh shadows as I could from a very directional light source. So that's why I took the diffuser off. It was actually making the shadows too soft still from this far away. So yeah, I really couldn't be happier with the results on this. I'll show you a before and after version here. So you can see what the raw photo straight out of camera looked like, and then you can see what I did with the edits. But yeah, if you haven't done something like this, I challenge you to give it a shot. It'll either help you learn a new skill or maybe it'll give you a little practice. Share it in the MagMod community, share it on Instagram. It's a lot of fun to do this. Give it a shot. So if you like this video, give a comment down below and let me know you want to see more like it. Give it a thumbs up if you haven't, and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. There'll be more videos maybe like this, but also just anything videography and photography related kind of coming out in the future. And until the next one, see you later.